Hello everyone, welcome back to the KMTRADERS channel. So this is the Crypto Weekly Analysis Volume 24, just giving you an insight of what we think is going to happen next week or what we're heading for, and just to kind of review what had happened last week in our last week's analysis and review our annotations. So stepping up with Bitcoin, I'm going to just move to the daily. So yeah, what we resulted into, well, if we take a look back to that 4 hour, effectively what we're expecting is price to pretty much make its way towards the upside. We're effectively looking for price to push up higher. Maybe we could even get some sort of mild correction, which we're trying to possibly see here. So we could be seeing price drop a bit lower, and then for price to head into that 70k region. So again, what we mentioned from last week as we've broken the high is that we're going to probably continue to see more short-term bullish pressure towards the upside, and this is where we're trying not to get caught out of the FOMO, because again, as everyone thinks, Bitcoin is probably just going to continue rallying and rallying. But again, I am quite negative, not negative, but just kind of being aware of when price needs to turn over, because I do believe at some point it does need to, and this could be a perfect opportunity that price may want to do so. So yeah, so what we could expect to see is probably just one more push up higher. Maybe this is the low. It doesn't have to be, we don't have to expect price to drop this low. That's not what these annotations are. They're kind of just little drawings just to explain things in, if that makes sense. But effectively, I'm looking at this uptrend here as our point where we could expect price to reverse from to the upside as the manipulation point. And then effectively, if we're able to push higher from this high here at 66 to 67k, there is a possibility that we're going to then watch for any sell-off pressure. If we do any signs of that sell-off pressure, it could be an indication that we are dropping. And if that does happen, I know where I'm looking to target, and that's roughly at the 28k to 27k. So this is going to be a big drop that we're expecting, but we just have to kind of stay patient with this, and also just not be but also just be aware and mindful that price is moving technically up still. So we're not going to just say, oh, just because we saw this sell pressure here, that's a sell. We just need to be a bit more confluence with it, see a bit more confluences, see a bit more evidence that, you know, price does want to drop off. If we start to see some aggressive sells, that could be one sign, but we need to match it with some other structure points as well. So don't be so keen to you know, cash in your buys, because ultimately I could be wrong and price could still continue to step up, you know. So yeah, let's just move on now to the other coins and see how the effects have taken place for last week. So taking a look into Ripple, I don't think too much has really happened. We've just had pretty much this consolidation, you know, price stepping in this range, nothing too crazy, but it's good to see prices probably just been stepping up. Again, we're focusing on this $1.40 range. There is a possibility that price, actually I did have this outlook the other week, actually, sorry, not the other week, the other day. There is a possibility that price may want to break this high, and if it does, we could end up pushing up and making some aggressive moves to take out the $2 range. From here, I think this would be a very good point to indicate that then price could drop all the way back down to 50 cents. So I actually am thinking of closing some of my positions here if we start to see any of the sell pressure come in, because this is the all-time high. So if we start to see any kind of sell pressure kicking in from here when we break this $2 range, I'll be very quick to close it. Maybe have some position because I'm in an okay position, but there is a possibility that we could expect price to come up here if we break the $1.40 range. If we get price to break up here, let's just see what happens. Because ideally this could break all the way up to $3, and if that does happen, then we're off. But yeah, anything can happen. So we're looking at two perspectives here. If price wants to break down, it can. If price wants to push up higher, it can. we're just trying to review the situation at hand, and they're the two scenarios that we're looking into. And again, 50 cents is that range where we're looking to buy, so we're not really involved in this market, okay? We're just waiting still. So AUD, Cardano, again, adding into the situation with Ripple, we could expect price to push up higher, so this could also make sense that price would want to push up higher. But again, in terms of positioning and where you want to buy, it's not at it's not here right now, or it's not waiting for price to get to here. We're waiting for somewhere around the region of $1. I think price definitely could do something like this, and I think inevitably that has the power. Well, it does have something. It could happen basically. So we are not really trying to force any buying situations right now. We're trying to position ourselves very smart and not too aggressive. So to me, buying here is pretty expensive, even though it could have that possibility of running to $3. But at the same note, I'm focusing more on the $1 at such a cheaper rate that if price does come here, I believe that this would be the better dip to buy, because in the end, the ROI on this would be a lot more, 3 times your money versus, you know, a third. You know, so just keep that in perspective. That's what I'm looking at. Moving on to Litecoin. So let's just take a quick look at this scenario. So price hitting off that 618 fib, there is a possibility that price could reverse here, but it could also push higher and then reverse lower. So I'm very keen that price could get into that 3.5k level. Not too worried or not too focused on this pair, but effectively once we're around this range, expecting price to bolt up towards the upside. So that's pretty much the long-term plan here. Once we go below this level or this key area, we're effectively waiting for buys at that point. So again, nothing too interesting right now. Ethereum, what we're seeing right now is price still wanting to push up higher, and that's perfectly fine. I think I mentioned this last week, but we are, as price has broken the high, we just need to wait for price to exhaust. So essentially we're just waiting for price to kind of show some signs that it wants to push lower, and I feel like this could match in confluence with Bitcoin. So when Bitcoin drops, it could also have an impact on Ethereum wanting to push lower. Ideally that could be a scenario, but again, this could also continue to rocket higher. So we, like I said earlier, we don't want to take any sells or cash in from any buys if we start to see a little bit of a sell-off pressure. We want to see some clear evidence that it's really wanting to turn over. Okay, so in terms of where we think we could buy from next is at the 1,700 range. So we're just ultimately just waiting for that to happen, really. I'm not focusing anywhere near buying right now. I think it's too exhausted. I think it's overpriced, and price needs to come down at a cheaper point for me to be interested into buying it again. So let's just see what happens there. Dogecoin, like I said, it's had that push towards the upside in the last few days or so. Spike up point here, we're just kind of really seeing what's going to happen. So we're basically expecting price to drop to the 15 cents range, or the alternative is price to break towards the upside and then push lower. So again, it is a very interesting point where price is. Price does definitely have the ability to continue to push higher, but ideally it depends if if this is the low or not. So let's just see what's to come from this, because I think we could actually push lower. Ideally I'm looking at 15 cents as a buy point, but yeah, let's just move on. And finally EGLD, as we've broken that high, we're just ultimately waiting for price to drop off, really. So moving this point to here as our next structure point, so more or less to the $200 range, which is a nice psychological point, to be honest. Effectively we're just waiting for price to drop off, really. Divergence wise, we're already seeing it step down, so the momentum is clearly lacking. if we were to just understand that. So quick thing on divergence is that the peaks will often mismatch the peaks on the price action. So prices, you know, this is the high, this is the low, this is a higher high. So this is the high, so this is the high, this is a low, and this is a lower high, even though that this is a higher high compared to this high. So yeah, so effectively there's this downwards. If you just simply just look at the peaks, compare the peaks, so it steps up. So if you were to draw up, let me just quickly draw that. So stepping up, and this is stepping down. So when you see the difference between step up and step down, that's divergence. And equally, if we were looking at a sell, so as an example here, quick 101, this is stepping down, and this is stepping up. Can you see how that kind of shows divergence there? So this is a sell side divergence, and this is a buy side divergence. So just keep that in mind when using RSI. Again, these RSIs don't happen all the time, but you just need to be aware that they can potentially cause price moves to reverse. Okay, so this is pretty much my warning sign that we're seeing right now. Then all we need to do is just wait for price to step down, and then we can start, you know, looking at the main focus point, which is which is potentially into these areas here. To the downside, maybe 120, 130 to probably 50. So that's pretty much where we're expecting price to go. So we're not really seeing anything necessarily important right now. We're really just waiting for price to drop off, really. So that could possibly happen when Bitcoin drops. So like I said, this is a confluence thing with Bitcoin, and that's where I'm trying to add in the extra piece of confluence as well. So yeah, that'll be all for this week. Again, nothing too crazy. Again, we're just, a lot of waiting is needed to be done, especially from a long-term perspective. I believe this is probably like a monthly thing. But I might actually start to do crypto weekly, or maybe just do them on a monthly basis, or maybe every 2 weeks, maybe every now and again, because I think these videos are a bit repetitive now. I think probably the best way to do it is if I was to just update particular pairs, maybe if it starts to break, or if I start to see anything in particular, because what this channel is primarily, it's mainly focused on Forex, and like I said, that's where my most attention is, so I believe that's where most people want to see it. But I definitely do want to keep crypto in. So what I probably will end up doing is doing it either on a monthly basis, or if something is changing on from my last video. Okay, so I think that will probably make these videos a bit more of value, if that makes sense, rather than just repetitive talk. Okay, so yeah, so that will be all, I guess. Like I said, if you are new to this channel, we do have a trading group that's primarily focused on Forex. If you're interested, that link is in the description. If you did get any value from this video, make sure to give it a like. If you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed. So that will be all. Thank you very much for listening and your time, and we'll see you all in our next week's video.